There's a very famous monastery in Greece. Very famous. There's only one problem with this monastery. It sits very, very, very high on a cliff. A 300-foot cliff. Seems like you can only reach the abbey by a very terrifying ride. The ride is taken in a swaying basket. The basket is pulled up by several very strong men, who usually are perspiring under the strain of the heavy load. There was an American tourist who decided he wanted to go up to see that abbey. Halfway up, he started getting a little nervous. See, he'd done pretty good when he looked at the ropes. He looked at the rope and he thought to himself, man, that rope is really old and it's kind of getting frayed. So he asked the question, he said, how often do you change the rope? And the monk who was in charge jokingly replied, whenever it breaks. Didn't give him much comfort. We're going to talk about faith today. Because our eternal fulfillment is a matter of faith. Not faith as we would define it, but faith as it was defined by Jesus. It means trust. It means innocent, open, unbreakable trust with Almighty God, who is the creator, the giver of all life. It means an unbreakable trust to God's promise, never to withdraw his everlasting, eternal love for each one of us. It means an unbreakable trust in God's claim of victory over death. It means an unbreakable trust in the redeeming power of love as God has revealed it in Jesus Christ. It also means the unbreakable trust of the woman that I read about in today's lesson. I want you to really think about this lesson for a moment. Because sometimes we just read it or we hear it and we don't really listen to it. Matthew tells the story. He says that a Canaanite woman is pleading to Jesus for help. Sir, son of David, she cries out, take pity upon me. Basically, she is saying to him, my daughter is tormented by a devil. Help me. And Jesus does some things that doesn't seem like him to us. The first thing he does is he just ignores her. Because the woman is not a Jew, Jesus' disciples tell him to send her away. And you know what? Jesus seems to agree with them. He reminds her of the popular impression of his ministry. He says, I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. But the woman doesn't give up. She kneels down. She pleads. Lord, help me. Help my daughter. And then Jesus says something that really is strange for him to say. He says to her, and I don't know if you've ever really thought about this, but think about this. This is what he says to her. It is not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs. Why would he say such things? To which the woman replies, yes, Lord, yet even the dogs eat the scraps that fall from their master's table. And it is at that point, this observation, that the woman actually leads us to the emphasis of the lesson that I read this morning. Because what we read and what is actually there might be two different things. The scene that's given is in anticipation of the time when there would be no longer a division between the Jews and the Gentiles. When it would come down, when it would become plain to everyone that God's plan of salvation is open to each of them. Christianity cannot be contained, cannot be confined, cannot be isolated. Christianity, by its very nature, spontaneously extends out into the world in general. Eternal fulfillment is open to all under the rule of God. There are no exceptions. God does not play favorites. There are some places that say, oh yes, but you have to. No, you don't have to. We are not judges. We are not the judge of others. God's creative intention for each human being who comes into this world is eternal fulfillment in his kingdom of love. No exceptions. No exceptions. The woman in today's lesson believed that. She said no to the very idea that she and her daughter were less valuable, were less precious in God's eyes. She believed they were just as good, just as precious as the people of Israel, or anywhere else for that matter. And so as the story ends, Jesus says to her, woman, you have great faith. Let your wish be granted. And her daughter was healed instantly. The child who had been tormented by a devil was made whole again through her mother's act of faith in God's love, in God's mercy for all. I'll tell you a story. Might be one you can relate to. I can relate to it very easily. It's written by an author who has written lots of different articles and poems. In this one, she gives a very moving account of how her faith in God's goodness carried her through a very difficult life experience. Please listen to this because it may have happened to you. It may have been part of your life. She writes, she said, my mother has a very dementing illness, similar to Alzheimer's. She's had it now for the past 2 years. I have watched her every day as she loses more and more and more of her mind. Every day she sees people who aren't there. Every day she hears people speaking that aren't speaking. When I listen to her ravings, it is the most painful, the most difficult thing that I ever had to do. And she said, I asked God, I said, why, God? Why can't you give her back her mind? Why are you allowing her to suffer like this? And she said, I cried. I wept. Then she says, but slowly I began to see God's goodness. Even in this. I began to see that my mother really isn't suffering. Because her mind is failing, she doesn't realize she's getting worse. She doesn't remember who I am. But she also doesn't remember the number of people who have hurt her in the past. And even though she gets irritated by the imaginary people that she sees, because of them, she doesn't feel alone. She writes, day by day, moment by moment, God is helping me to accept her as she is. Helping me to listen to her and not to argue with her. Above all, teaching me that I can still sing of His mercy and His power. I feel the transforming power of His love undergirding me as I move through this life. And I have found that in His mercy, He will call my mother home when the time has come. And so I pray very simply, help me, God. And grant me the faith that I need to see your hidden blessings and to keep on singing. And that's difficult. That's difficult because I've been around. I've had an aunt that reached a point where she didn't know anyone. No. It's a terrible, terrible disease. But you know what? With eyes of faith, we can clearly see the Father's plan for our final destiny. A destiny that He has already fashioned out for us in His infinite love for us. With eyes of faith, we can clearly see things as they are in the light of things as they will be one day. Our Christian faith offers us no illusion that we are a people chosen to be exempt from pain and suffering. We're not offered a promise of trouble-free life and easy comfort. We're not immune from evil and from the consequences of evil. Makes no exception to the rule of God's judgment. Our spiritual faith provides us with the spiritual equilibrium, the moral stamina we need to face up to the burdens, the evils, and the fears that overtake us. And there's a lot of evil out in our world. We can't understand why somebody can take a gun and start shooting people. That doesn't make sense. There's evil. But we can't blame everybody in the world for it. We can only blame the person who commits the evil. Unexpected things happen to us. Sometimes, if we look, our Christian faith enables us to see our own culpability for things as they are, and our own responsibility for things as they will be. But we have to see things with a clear vision. I'll tell you the story of a missionary. He went to a far-off country to preach and teach the good news of the gospel. First job he had was to translate the New Testament into the language of the natives. Very quickly he came upon a problem because that village had no word for faith. How do you do this and not be able to have a word for faith? While grappling with the problem one night, the missionary sank down into his favorite chair. And he thought to himself, how wonderful it feels to lean your whole weight on something when you are exhausted. Never been at that point? So worn out you just wanted to sit down and rest. Wasn't it nice to have that chair to sit in? Suddenly, he realized that that was the image he was searching for. Consequently, he finished his translation. And whenever he came to the words that spoke of faith, he used the phrase, lean your whole weight on God. Lean your whole weight on God. Whenever we lean our whole weight on the Lord, we open ourselves to others so that they might lean on us. You know, the old song, Bill Withers' song, Lean on Me, has these words in it. Just call me brother when you need a hand. We all need somebody to lean on. I just might have a problem that you'll understand. We all need somebody to lean on. You know, Jesus is saying to each one of us, lean on me. The problems that we face in life, the troubles of this world of ours, Jesus says, lean on me. Feel the transforming power of God's love. Lean on me and enter into a new life of loving service to your brothers and to your sisters everywhere. Lean on me. For there is no way to enter into a more intimate relation with God than through trusting, through leaning on Him. There's going to be things in this world we don't understand. There's going to be events that happen for which we don't have answers. But we know one thing for sure. No matter what happens, God is there for us, giving us the strength to see them through. And we can spread that faith to others. One of the things, and I saw this someplace, read this someplace, believe this entirely. Said very simply, that in a church that you're looking to grow, that a minister can go out and invite lots of people to come in, usually doesn't do that much good. You know what makes a difference? You. The people themselves. For you have friends, you have neighbors, you have those that you know who are not in church somewhere. Someone who needs just a special invitation to come in, come share time with me, to come and visit. Lean on me. Let me help see you through the problems of life. There are only kids that are going to school. It's hard for us to realize this, but there are a lot of, I don't say a lot, but there are a lot of those kids who somebody used to think about, who seem not to have anybody who really cares about them. And that's hard for us to put into context, that they have children out there that their parents just don't care about. We have to be ready to help, to show love and caring. That's who we are. What's the old song? We'll know we are Christians by our love, by our love. Yes, they'll know we are Christians by our love. That's who we are. That's what we have to be. Let's pray. Father, we do give thanks unto thee for thy love and for thy caring, for reaching out to us, and for helping us to reach out to others. Help us to show love and caring. Help us to reach out in all that we say and do.